Hey everyone, welcome to Digging In. We are looking at an extraordinary Eagle experience this year, and we want to invite you in to be able to be challenged by what we want to present to you as you think about how you can grow your leadership this year. So for today, we have a great opportunity with Tricia Collins, our Director of Leadership Coaching, to talk about how do you lead yourself? How do you make sure that you're given the intention, the time, the energy, so that you can lead yourself well, so then you can lead others well. So we want to capture that today as we think about how do we give some attention to ourselves and be aware to strengthen a muscle, strengthen a leadership muscle in ourselves.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me so I can speak to that today. So as I was thinking through leading self, because it's vast, there's a lot of different things, but kind of narrowed it down to 3 thoughts specifically. So including leading yourself emotionally, leading yourself intellectually, and then leading yourself holistically is what I would want to focus on for today's conversation. So when I say all those things, the first is leading yourself emotionally. And we all know the big buzzwords of emotional intelligence, but it's a buzzword for a reason because it is really important in leading yourself, because a piece of that is your own personal awareness of what's going on within you.
So speak to that, being aware of how you're feeling, how you're thinking. Talk to us about, how do you do that?
So a couple different things. One is just start paying more attention to different things, even being aware of when I enter this situation, when I'm in this kind of conversation, paying a little more attention to what's happening within yourself, what's going on. It's a feeling thing to a degree, what feelings are coming up, but also what thoughts am I having within this? And just learning to be a little more aware of our own selves and what's going on with us. Because when we can learn to be more aware of what's happening with us, then we can learn how to manage that, because it's a two-piece, it's a two-parter on that one of I need to be aware of this is when this situation happens, this is what comes up in me. These are my tendencies. But then the next level is, what am I going to do about that? So then, as I say, what am I going to do with that? Because if I know this situation always brings up anger or frustration, then I need to step into, so how am I going to manage that? If this is what's happening, what do I need to look at to better manage that response internally?
Talk to us for just a moment on what if that emotion does get triggered? How do you be able to just navigate yourself in the moment, just some real-time things. If you think about, being in the office or being remote, and just how different situations can bring about, that strong emotion. What do you do with it?
So my quick thoughts would be, depending on your personality, which is what we like to talk about, fight, flight, or freeze. One of those is going to kick in with your anger. So one, if you know when that emotion comes up, I just zone out and go silent. Then I think it's important to recognize, okay, I've completely shut down in this conversation. And even put words to it of, hey, I know we're in the middle of this conversation. I need to go to the restroom really quick, or I need to get a glass of water for a second. And that gives you the ability to keep moving in it, so you're not just shut down on it. Same thing if you're more of a fighter and the instinct is to go hard into that, then kind of similar thing of just training yourself to say, I need to take just 1 second on this one to wrap my head around it. Let me go get a glass of water and come right back to this situation at hand. I would also say, if you can't get a glass of water, great. If not, silence is okay sometimes. To just say, let me think on this for a second. And just take 10 extra seconds to do a little breathing, actually, of just quickly take some breaths, center yourself back in so that you can engage in the conversation further.
That's good. So do we fight, flight, or freeze? Good to be aware.
Yeah.
So that helps us with our EQ, so we can respond differently and lead ourselves differently.
So the second leading of the self is intellectually leading ourselves. And when I was thinking through that, what I wanted to say with it is more of am I still growing? How am I consistently developing and growing my intellectual ability in different situations? We have knowledge, we have different things, but we're not experts on everything. We don't have to be experts on everything either, but we want to be strong and solid in what we're doing. And so leading ourselves looks like, what books am I reading right now? What am I challenging myself to do? What podcasts am I enjoying at this moment to learn and grow and develop? What areas am I putting myself in to have conversations to stimulate my intellectual ability in different ways? And I think it's important. If we become stagnant, then we just die. As I say, there's no movement on that. But it is a definite lead yourself, because no one's holding us accountable to that sometimes. So it's a piece that I have to actively choose. What do I want to be growing in this year? And I do. I sit down and create goals for myself every year. And one is, what are the books I'm going to read? What are some new podcasts? How can I be engaging in this to hold myself and lead myself accountable for that?
That is so good. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to make that time, find that time, be intentional about that. You mentioned conversations. So are you saying intentionally put yourself into some conversations that might not be comfortable for you and kind of practice? What are you
so
saying?
Two different ways. One is even bringing up in your regular group and circles, but actually engaging in some more conversations around that. And then also really challenging yourself of, what is my daily rhythm? Who am I surrounding myself with? And what is something different this year that I can step into, become a member of, or just engage with, so I am getting different conversations. You know, one of the things in one of the Netflix shows that came out about social media in the last few years, it says, depending on what state you live in, if you type in the example they used was global warming. If you just type in global warming, your first Google responses will differ depending on where you live. And to speak to that, I think that's for everything. If you're just walking with the similar people every day, then it's probably not stimulating different thoughts. But if we're choosing and leading ourselves to engage in different backgrounds, cultural conversations, then it is going to stimulate us more.
So I allow myself to listen, allow myself to just kind of be in the moment in that conversation and really kind of take in differences, take in different perspectives, different opinions, different ways of responding to things, and then allow myself to process that and just see, how do I do with that, right? What do I need to learn from that? That's good.
Well, I think it can connect back to then the leading ourselves emotionally, because it would be interesting as you are growing your intellectual set of what is it triggering in you, though, that then you need to come back and reprocess of emotional intelligence as well. So
and I can be aware and not act. I can have a different perspective and not act on that.
I think that is a phrase that we all need to hear more often of, I can have feelings and thoughts, but it doesn't mean I have to do anything with it. And just learning to, what do I want to do with it? Is this just something for me? Is this something to move on? I think it's good for all of us to slow down on that.
Very valuable. Very valuable. What else?
So the third one, if I'm just trying to narrow self-leadership down, was just a holistic picture. And by that one, I mean physical and health and the whole picture of leading yourself well. Because at the end of the day, could be extremely emotionally aware. Could be very intellectually gifted and knowledgeable in different ways. But if I'm not taking care of myself in the best way, then I am still going to flounder. I'm going to miss days of work. I'm going to do there's going to be health issues that are within my control to a degree that I can minimize if I'm caring for myself from a holistic health and physical standpoint. And that's the same too of sitting down and making myself, how I do it is I do it with my goal planning of, okay, what's your goals for this year? Are we going to run so many miles this year? Are you going to do some different strength training? What are you eating these days? What does that look like? What are we eating? What are we putting in our body? Because we know our food is fuel. And so whatever we're putting in is what we run off of. And I think as leaders, because we know when we choose to be a leader, we're stepping into carrying a different weight. And I think it's important for us as leaders to recognize as well, we need to be leading ourselves in that way too, so we can be our best self. And part of that, this past year, I can share, I did get to transition in to being our coaching director here at Eagle, which is an honor, super thankful, but it required me to really stretch and grow myself intellectually, emotionally, all the different things actually. And so at the end of this year, when I was kind of sitting down and reassessing, like, what were our successes this year? Where did I miss the mark? How can I be growing? I did stretch myself and still have room to go, but getting in the details and understanding all of our different contracts we have and all the moving pieces on it. It was a lot of extra work in that arena. And then just taking the weight on of leading a whole different set of people, all the different things that come with that. And in a lot of ways, I felt I had some successes and wins in those areas. But the thing that I did not give as much attention to was my own holistic physical self. And it wasn't horrible. I mean, there wasn't anything crazy, but it was an area that I realized I was having more fatigue. I was getting tired more easily. And it was because I did not give that as much attention. And so it's just one. It can't be one without the other. We have to be leading ourselves in all of those different ways to be our best for the people that we're leading.
So well said. So well said. And you've done a tremendous job in leading. We're so thankful for you. And you're challenging us. You're challenging us that, we might be more aware, or we might have a strong EQ, but then we may not be taking the time to really grow. Are we doing that? And then are we really thinking about holistically how those align together and how they need to join together? They don't need to function in isolation.
That's good.
They need to be together so that we're taking care of ourselves overall. You said we bear weight when we choose to step up and lead and take on a role to influence others, to support other people in their leadership journey and their roles within an organization. And so that weight overall is real. And we've got to be mindful so that we can lead ourselves, take care of ourselves.
Absolutely.
Incredible thoughts and challenging myself. And I hope we've challenged you. I want you to slow down and spend some time really thinking about, first of all, how do you handle emotion? Do you fight, flight, or flee? But then really think about, how are you in your EQ? How are you really growing your emotional intelligence? Are you taking some time to grow muscle there? Are you taking time to evaluate? Are you taking time to slow down so that you can pull those pieces together? And then are you taking ownership of your own development? Are you doing that? Not waiting on a system or structure within your organization, but you're owning that on your own. And then how are you doing overall holistically? So take some time, spend some energy around that, and we know that you'll be better for doing that. Thank you for joining us today, Tricia. Great insight and wisdom. Thank you for being with us on Digging In.
To learn more about the concepts from this video, you can find Dr. Larry Little's book, Crossing the Line, available to purchase on Amazon and our website, eaglecenterforleadership.com. You can also find the podcast, Crossing the Line with Larry Little, available on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or online at eaglecenterforleadership.com. Thank you for watching.